Let's get started with our first news. Kamzach Chimayv responds to Kaio Borralho. In a recent conversation, Kamzach Chimayv opened up about a time when Kaio Borralho expressed interest in stepping in to fight him. This was around the time when rumors were spreading fast about Dricus du Plessis being potentially injured. With uncertainty hanging in the air, Kaio saw an opportunity and made it clear he was ready to face Kamzach. But this wasn't just some random call out. There's a history between them. Kamzach and Kaio actually used to train together years ago. They've shared rounds in the gym, pushed each other, and learned from one another. So this wasn't just a fight offer coming from a stranger. This was personal in a way, but not with animosity, rather familiarity. When asked about the situation, Kamzach didn't hold back. He said, "Kaio is a good guy. To be honest, I understand he wants some hype and some money." And Kamzach wasn't wrong. A fight against a major name like Chimayv is bound to attract a lot of attention. But more than that, it's about the paycheck. Kamzach made it very clear what's at stake. He continued, "A fight with ME is guaranteed $1 million. If he fights someone else, he'll probably make $200,000. That's a massive difference. We're talking about 5 times the money, and all in one night." So Kamzach broke it down with brutal honesty. It's better for him to get beaten up in one fight than have to go through 5 different fights. Let that sink in. From Kamzach's perspective, the logic is cold but makes sense. Why take the hard road, grinding through multiple matchups, risking losses, injuries, and exhausting training camps when you could roll the dice once and walk away with a huge payday, even if it means getting smashed by one of the most dangerous fighters in the division? That's the Chimayv mindset. Brutal, calculated, director. But what's interesting is that Kamzach isn't disrespecting Kaio. On the contrary, he called him a good guy and recognized his grind. He gets it. He understands the hustle. But at the same time, Chimayv is very aware of his market value. He knows that anyone who steps in the cage with him instantly earns more money, more attention, and more credibility, even in defeat. In the world of MMA, these moments of honesty from fighters like Chimayv are rare. Most fighters hype the fight or trash talk, but Kamzach speaks with a mix of realism and intensity. He's telling the world how the game works. You want money, you want attention, you fight someone like him, you take the risk, you take the beating, and you cash the check. That's the fight business, raw and real. And Kamzach Chimayv just gave us a glimpse behind the curtain. Now moving on to our second news. Dana White shuts down Conor McGregor. Just a few days ago, Conor McGregor decided to shake things up once again on social media. As always, his post stirred the pot and got fans buzzing. He tagged Dana White and the TKO group in a now viral message, writing, "Call that big butt nurse." The internet went wild, wondering what Conor meant by that and what kind of message he was trying to send. But he didn't stop there. He followed it up with another cryptic but energetic post saying, "Let's get this show started at UFC." Of course, as soon as those messages hit the timeline, fans around the world lit up with speculation. Is Conor back? Is he ready to return to the octagon? And most importantly, is the UFC going to make it happen? Well, it didn't take long before reporters started asking Dana White for some answers. After all, he's the one who holds the keys to the kingdom. So when he was asked directly about Conor's situation and whether we'd see the Irish superstar return to action soon, Dana gave a very blunt and telling response. He said, "What's the latest with him? Is he going to fight anytime soon? I haven't talked to him in a minute." But yeah, I don't know. That right there says it all. No hype, no build-up, no timeline. Just a simple, honest answer. Dana White has not spoken to Conor recently, and there are no plans in motion for his next fight. That completely crushed the momentum fans were hoping for after those explosive social media posts. Dana basically slammed the brakes on the entire conversation, shutting down any rumors of a return happening soon. This comes as a surprise to many, especially since Conor has been teasing a return for months now. Training footage, cryptic tweets, bold statements, but none of it seems to be moving the needle when it comes to actually getting back in the cage. However, while Conor's future remains uncertain, Dana did confirm some big news about another UFC superstar, Jon Jones. When asked about Jones and whether he's finally returning after his injury, Dana was far more confident. He said, "He's fighting, he will be fighting, 2025, yes." So while one legend remains in limbo, the other is locked in. Jon Jones is officially scheduled to fight in 2025, and that confirmation from Dana White puts at least some clarity back into the UFC's championship picture. In contrast, Conor McGregor's situation still feels like a mystery. Despite all the noise, there's no concrete plan, no official comeback, and according to Dana White, no recent communication. As of now, Conor's on the sidelines, and the UFC is moving forward without him. Stay tuned, because with Conor, you never know when the next headline will drop. Next up, Paddy Pimblett says Jon Jones needs to be stripped of his title. That's right, Paddy Pimblett isn't holding back. He recently came out in defense of Islam Makhachev and raised serious questions about how the UFC handles champions when they're inactive. Paddy believes there's a double standard at play, and he's calling it out loud and clear. Speaking with TNT Sports, Paddy directly questioned the decision to make Islam vacate his lightweight title, especially considering all that Islam has accomplished. He said, "If you're making Islam vacate, Jon Jones needs to be stripped. If you're making Islam give up his belt after 4 defenses, fighting guys on short notice, then you should let him try to be a double champ." According to Paddy, Islam has done everything right. He defended his belt multiple times. He took short notice fights. He stayed active, so why force him to vacate his title, especially when fighters like Jon Jones, who have been inactive for much longer, still hold on to their belts? Jones has been out of action since his injury, and while fans are still waiting for his return, there's been little movement or clarity about when he'll fight again. Paddy is simply saying, if the rules apply to one fighter, they should apply to everyone. If Islam is being held to that standard, then Jon Jones should be too. But Paddy didn't stop there. In that same interview, he shifted gears and started talking about his own future, and it's clear that he's got big plans. One name that came up was Ilia Topuria, the reigning featherweight champion who's now rumored to be moving up to lightweight. Paddy said it would actually be better for his career if Ilia Topuria defeats Charles Oliveira and becomes the new lightweight champion. Why? Because according to Paddy, Ilia would likely call him out for his first title defense. Paddy said, yeah, that'd be nice to fight Gaethje, but I was thinking about it the other day. It's probably better if Ilia wins the belt because he'll probably call me out. Then I could just fight him. Maybe I wouldn't even have to fight Gaethje. I could just fight Topuria. And he's not wrong. If Ilia Topuria becomes champion and is looking for a money fight, Paddy Pimblett is the name that brings attention, fans, and hype. Paddy went on to say, it'd be far better for my career if Ilia wins because I'd more than likely be his first title defense. I know for a fact, like if I beat Gaethje, I'm next in line, no matter who the champion is. It's just about whether he says yes or not. He's fighting down the rankings again. After what I just did to Chandler, I think I finished Justin Gaethje. So whether it's Gaethje or Topuria, Paddy Pimblett is aiming high. And with this level of confidence, he's ready to shake up the entire division. Moving on to another headline. Daniel Cormier fires back at Jon Jones. That's right, the longtime rivalry between Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones is once again back in the spotlight, but this time, it's one-sided, and DC is making it absolutely clear. He's done with fighting and has no interest in revisiting the past. It all started when Jon Jones made some fresh comments in an interview, claiming that if he had ever fought Cormier at heavyweight, he would have destroyed him even worse than he did at light heavyweight. Jones, who famously beat DC twice, although one win was later overturned, stirred up the rivalry again by suggesting he would have dominated even more at a higher weight class. But DC wasn't having it. Cormier responded on his YouTube channel with a direct, no-nonsense message. He said, talking about what you would have done to me 7 years ago, 5 years ago, when I retired. How about this? I've got a novel idea for you. I'm retired. I'm done. I'm 46. I'm washed up. I'm a broadcaster. I'm a commentator. I am a talking head. DC emphasized that he is not a fighter anymore. He's not training. He's not preparing for battles. He's on the mic, behind the desk, analyzing the sport. That's his life now. So why is Jon still talking about a fight that is never going to happen? Cormier continued, how about this novel idea? Fight the dude that's actually wanting to fight. I don't want to fight Jon Jones. I have no desire to fight anyone. But how about you fight the guy that's actually waiting to fight you? Tomaspinall. He brought up what fans have been shouting for months. A fight between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. Tom has been waiting patiently, holding the interim heavyweight title, eager to unify the belts. And yet, no fight has been announced. Cormier pointed out that it's not about the past anymore. It's not about old rivalries or who could have done what years ago. As he put it, we want to know, as the consumer, what's going to happen today. Then came a strong statement from DC. Am I afraid of this man? Absolutely not, but I'm not here to fight anymore. I'm a broadcaster. There's a guy that's up to his neck in frustrations because he's been waiting for so long. We want to know, when's the fight with the guy that actually wants to fight you? Cormier ended his message with one last push. It doesn't need to be a hypothetical. You guys can actually answer the question. Who's better between you and Tom? I was the heavyweight champ in 2018 and 2019, but hey, go fight him. How about that? Just fight the guy that wants to fight you. In classic DC fashion, short, sharp, and to the point. He's retired. But the sport still moves forward, and all eyes are now on Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, the fight the fans actually want to see. Next up, Ilia Topuria talks about Islam Makhachev versus Della Maddalena. Even though Islam Makhachev has officially vacated the lightweight title and is now moving up to 170 to face Della Maddalena, the tension between Makhachev and Ilia Topuria is still boiling online. The two champions have continued taking shots at each other, even from different weight classes. In a recent interview with Alvaro Conro, Topuria didn't hold back his thoughts on Islam's upcoming welterweight debut. Ilia said, "He is mentally broken. You have left the division out of fear, because there's no other explanation. I don't know how this is going to affect him mentally at welterweight. I really don't know. Let him do whatever he wants with his life." El Matador is clearly not buying the narrative that Islam moved up for challenge. He sees it as an escape. According to Ilia, vacating a belt after multiple title defenses, especially when the division was still stacked with threats, shows weakness, not bravery. But Ilia also left the door open to follow Islam to 170, he added. Of course, why not? It depends. If the fans want to see me fight at welterweight and there's a champion the company has at that moment, why not? I fight to entertain people. Obviously, I also have to be motivated by the challenge, so I'm not closing the door. If the opportunity arises and there's an exciting fight, I'll be there. He finished with a challenge to Islam, saying, "What I hope is that the other party is also willing, not willing to make excuses, but to back up what they're saying." In response, Ali Abdelaziz, Islam's longtime manager, took to social media and fired back in defense of his fighter. He wrote, "I wasn't really gonna say much, but I see people just don't want to move on. Islam is always going to be the lightweight champion. These two guys who are fighting, they're fighting for the Burger King belt. I wish people would be nice to each other, but hey, it is what it is." Meanwhile, Kamzach Chimayv, who trained with Ilia at All Stars Gym in Sweden, praised Topuria's mindset and hard work. Speaking with Adam Zubarai, Kamzach said, "We both fought in brave. It was clear he's a hard worker who wants to achieve something, and he's achieved everything that you can in this sport." On the other side of the cage, Della Maddalena's team is already preparing for war. During an appearance on Submission Radio, Jack's coach Ben Vickers shared his perspective after watching Islam's most recent title defense against Dustin Poirier. He said, "I watched a bit of footage on Islam, particularly the Poirier fight. I've never watched Islam before as a potential opponent. I've just enjoyed him fighting because he's brilliant to watch. But I think Jack will knock him out. He only has to hit him once in the first round. I just feel like he's not used to taking damage. He's not used to being in tough fights with someone pushing the pace, and he's been knocked out before. I feel very confident going into that fight." With Islam's welterweight debut heating up and Topuria not backing down, the fans are eagerly waiting. Now the only question is, when will the UFC finally announce the date? Now, onto another story. Shawn Strickland calls out Balal Muhammad. These two have been trading verbal shots for years, but according to Strickland, now's the perfect time to finally settle things inside the octagon. For a long time, a matchup between Balal and Shawn didn't really make sense. They were climbing separate ladders, Balal in the welterweight division and Strickland at middleweight. The weight difference, the rankings, and the timing just never lined up, but now things are very different. Balal Muhammad is coming off a tough title loss to Della Maddalena, and Strickland just lost a second time to middleweight champ Dricus du Plessis. And with both fighters currently in rebuilding mode, Strickland believes it's the perfect time to make the fight happen. In a recent interview interview with Helen Ye, Shawn Strickland said, "Balal, you should finally sack up. All that talk, man, we can finally make it happen. You lost your belt. I got beat up. We should make that fight happen." He didn't stop there. He also called Balal out for previously claiming he'd move up to middleweight. Balal said he would come up to middleweight before. All that talk he does on Instagram, now you can do it. Do it for Palestine. I'd love that fight. There's nobody there for me. He just fought. Let the lip heal up. Why not? It's definitely an interesting proposal. Would Balal be willing to take that step up in weight now that he's no longer holding the belt? Would this fight make sense for both fighters to rebuild their careers? According to a report from Real Kevin K, Strickland had actually wanted to fight Renier Dida before he was booked in another matchup. And in that same conversation with Helen Ye, Strickland mentioned he was also offered a fight with Kaio Borralho, but both he and Kaio mutually declined the offer. Now that raises a question. Now, should Strickland have said yes to one of those fights instead? Or is calling out Balal Muhammad, a fellow outspoken and controversial figure, the better move both competitively and promotionally? With both guys known for their unfiltered personalities and tough fighting styles, Shawn versus Balal at middleweight could turn out to be a wild brawl and a fan favorite. But it all depends on whether Balal is willing to step up and meet him at 185.